Your phone buzzed for the 15th time in 5 minutes. You didn't need to look to know it was Bakugo, again. Bakugo, come on, just fucking do it already. How long does it take to fucking quit a job? You sighed. The Nexus building loomed before you, all glass and steel and memories. Years of your life spent behind those doors. Years of working your ass off, of proving yourself in a field dominated by men who thought they knew better. And now you were about to throw it all away. For what? For explosive kisses against alley walls? For rough hands that somehow turned gentle when you least expected it? For a man whose hero name matched his personality, volatile, intense, impossible to ignore? Your phone went off again. Bakugo, if they give you any shit, I'm coming over. You sighed, thumbs flying over the screen. I told you I can handle this myself. Bakugo, should have just came to my agency. Got the paperwork ready. The mention of his agency sent your stomach into a nosedive. Working for Bakugo. With Bakugo. Under Bakugo. You blushed at that last part. Could you really do it? Work with a man who'd seen you naked, vulnerable, coming apart at the seams? A man who made your heart race with just a text message? It wasn't just the sex, though God knows that was incredible. It was the way he looked at you when he thought you weren't paying attention. The fierce protectiveness barely hidden behind his stupid permanent scowl. The respect in his eyes when you stood your ground against him. But working together would be a disaster. You knew it with bone-deep certainty. For one, the man had zero concept of professional boundaries. He'd already proven that by filling your apartment with his merchandise in some bizarre territorial display. What would he do at work? Mark your desk with explosion residue? Growl at anyone who dared speak to you? And then there was his temper. You'd seen it firsthand. The way he barked orders, expected immediate compliance. You'd pushed back because you weren't his employee. But what happened when you were? Would things fizzle out when the honeymoon period was over? When he criticized your designs? When the fantasy of sexy forbidden workplace romance gave way to actual workplace politics? Your phone buzzed again. Bakugo, you still standing outside like an idiot? You huffed a laugh despite yourself. Somehow he knew. About to go in. Stop texting me. Bakugo, make me. 2 words shouldn't make your heart flutter. Shouldn't make heat pool low in your belly. But here you were, staring at your phone like a lovesick teenager. This was exactly the problem. How could you maintain any professional distance when just reading his texts made you want to run back to your apartment and into his arms? But you couldn't keep working at Nexus either. Not after Nakamura and Rika's ultimatum. Not when they'd sidelined you for having the audacity to have a life outside work. You pocketed your phone and squared your shoulders. 2 weeks. You'd give them 2 weeks of professional courtesy, then walk away with your head high. The instant you walked through the doors, the lobby fell silent. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Heads turned. Eyes followed you across the polished floor. So much for a dignified exit. You felt naked. Heck, if you were naked, they wouldn't be ogling so much. You kept your chin up, pretending not to notice the whispers that trailed in your wake. Let them talk. Let them speculate. None of it mattered now. Right? There she is. Kuroda appeared at your elbow, eyes wide behind his glasses. Is it true? Great. Here we go. Is what true? You and Dynamite. He lowered his voice to an urgent whisper. The gossip. The pictures are everywhere. Nakamura's been on a rampage all morning. Great. Just great. Things are complicated, you admitted, which was the understatement of the century. You honestly weren't even sure how you had gotten here. Kuroda pushed his glasses up his nose. He was nervous. Not good. Whatever's going on, you might want to prepare yourself. Nakamura called an emergency meeting. Something about client retention and company image. The knot in your stomach tightened. I'm guessing I'm the topic of discussion? You and about 6 contingency plans to save the Bubbleman account. Kuroda glanced over his shoulder. They're saying you've been sharing trade secrets with Dynamite's agency. You nearly choked. That's ridiculous. I know that. Kuroda's smile was small but genuine. But you know how this place gets. Crisis mode means finding someone to blame. And you'd made yourself the perfect target. Your phone buzzed again. For a brief, wild, insane moment, you considered texting Bakugo to come rescue you. To stride in with his hero costume and that cocky smirk, to tell Nakamura exactly where she could shove her accusations. But no. This was your mess to clean up. Your reputation to salvage. I should go face the music, you said, squaring your shoulders. Thanks for the warning, Kuroda. He nodded, awkwardly patting your arm. For what it's worth, most of us think it's pretty cool. You and Dynamite, I mean. That was reassuring. Well, almost reassuring. At least someone was on your side. The walk to Nakamura's office felt like marching to your own execution. Colleagues stared or suddenly found their computer screens fascinating as you passed. The whispers followed you down the hallway. Saw the pictures. Always thought she was too ambitious. Sleeping with the client. Your face burned, but you kept walking. Let them talk. In 2 weeks, none of this would matter. You paused outside Nakamura's door, drawing a deep breath. Beyond this threshold lay the end of your career at Nexus. The beginning of whatever came next. Working with Bakugo? Striking out on your own? The uncertainty twisted in your gut. But beneath the anxiety fluttered something else. Something that felt suspiciously like excitement. Like freedom. You knocked on the door, the sound sharp in the hushed hallway. Enter. Nakamura's voice was cold enough to freeze hydrogen. You stepped inside, closing the door behind you. Time to face the consequences of falling for the most explosive hero in Japan. The moment you stepped into Nakamura's office, your stomach dropped through the floor. This wasn't just Nakamura and Rika waiting for you. Nope. Two men in crisp suits sat beside them, legal pads open, expressions carved from granite. Lawyers. They'd brought lawyers. Shit. So much for your dignified 2 weeks' notice. Please have a seat, Nakamura said out of pure courtesy. You lowered yourself into the empty chair, the leather protesting with a high-pitched squeal. Four pairs of eyes tracked your every movement. The room felt airless, like being trapped in a vacuum chamber with people who'd just as soon watch you suffocate. I assume you know why you're here, Rika said, sliding a manila folder across the desk. With shaking fingers, you flipped it open. Photos spilled out Bakugo entering your apartment building last night. Another of him leaving this morning, hair still damp from your shower. A close-up of his hand on the small of your back, as you parted ways in the morning. Your face burned. Not from shame, you weren't ashamed of being with him, but from the violation. Someone had been watching, photographing, following. You realize this constitutes a breach of your employment contract, said one of the lawyers, a balding man with wire-rimmed glasses. Section 12, paragraph 3 clearly states. Shit. I know what it states. You cut in, finally finding your voice. No fraternization with clients. This goes beyond fraternization, Nakamura snapped, jabbing a manicured finger at the photos. You've been sharing proprietary information with a rival agency. Wait, what? That's not true. I haven't shared anything. Really? The second lawyer, younger with a shark-like smile, slid another document toward you. Dynamite officially terminated his contract with us this morning. Effective immediately. Your heart stumbled. Bakugo had ended his contract? Without telling you? It was one thing to say it, it was another to legally end things. That was a whole other beast. A beast you hadn't even thought about. Ending contracts had huge repercussions for tech companies. It shouldn't have surprised you though. Yet here you were. Surprised. I had nothing to do with. And Chargebolt called 30 minutes ago, Rika interrupted, her expression smug. Terminating his contract as well. Quite the coincidence, isn't it? Chargebolt too? Your head spun. This couldn't be happening. I haven't spoken to Chargebolt in weeks, you protested, fighting to keep your voice steady. Not since I finished his wrist mechanism. You can check the logs. We have, the balding lawyer said. Along with your access records to our database. You viewed files for projects you weren't assigned to. Files containing proprietary designs. Your mouth went dry. For research purposes, I was studying other successful designs to improve my own work. Or to share them with your new employer. Nakamura's lip curled. Your mouth went dry. They really thought you were stealing designs for Bakugo's agency. That you'd been planning this, using your relationship to poach clients. You almost laughed in their faces. The idea was so absurd it bordered on hilarious. Bakugo, masterminding corporate espionage? The same guy who'd filled your apartment with plushies of himself in a jealous fit over a Red Riot doll? They thought this was about business? About tech secrets? If they could see him this morning, his hands gentle on your waist, his eyes following you as you dressed, they'd know how ridiculous this sounded. Bakugo didn't want your designs. He wanted you. Okay, maybe he did want your designs, but he wanted designs for him. I haven't shared any proprietary information, you said firmly. Bubbleman is considering termination as well, the younger lawyer added, ignoring your statement. That would be 3 major hero contracts lost in a single day. The financial damage to TechNexus Solutions is substantial. And actionable, the balding lawyer added. Your blood turned to ice water. Actionable? We're preparing to file a civil suit, Nakamura said, satisfaction glinting in her eyes. Breach of contract, corporate espionage, theft of intellectual property. That's insane. You shot to your feet, chair scraping against the floor. I haven't stolen anything. Sit down, Rika hissed. You remain standing because fuck her. I came here today to give my 2 weeks' notice. That's it. I've done nothing wrong. 2 weeks. Nakamura laughed, the sound brittle. You're fired, effective immediately. Security will escort you to clear your desk. Any company property in your possession must be returned before you leave the building. The room tilted slightly. Fired. After everything you'd accomplished here. After all the late nights, the innovations, the breakthroughs. And we'll need all your personal devices, the balding lawyer added. For forensic examination. The hell you will, you snapped, channeling a bit of Bakugo's fire. You want my devices, get a court order. The lawyer's eyebrows shot up. This attitude isn't helping your case. I don't have a case because I haven't done anything wrong. Your voice rose despite your efforts to stay calm. This is ridiculous. You can't just accuse me of corporate espionage because I'm dating a former client. Former as of 4 hours ago, Rika pointed out coldly. Rather convenient timing. Your hands curled into fists at your sides. Where was all this coming from? Yes, you'd broken the fraternization rule, but this level of hostility seemed excessive. Unless. This isn't about breach of contract, you said slowly, the pieces clicking into place. This is about you losing Dynamite as a client. You're looking for someone to blame. Nakamura's jaw tightened. Bingo. And instead of considering that maybe, just maybe, your policies are the problem, you'd rather destroy my career. Your career? Nakamura stood, eyes flashing. You destroyed it yourself when you decided to sleep with the client. Did you think there wouldn't be consequences? The unfairness of it all hit you like a tidal wave. All your hard work, your innovations, your dedication, reduced to nothing because of who you'd fallen for. I'll be clearing my desk now, you said, voice trembling with suppressed rage. And you can expect to hear from my lawyer. Wait, did you even have a lawyer? No, but fuck it. Channel your inner Bakugo. You have 24 hours to return all company property, the younger lawyer called as you reached the door. After that, we'll add theft to the charges. You paused, hand on the doorknob. Without turning around, you said, you know, it's funny. Dynamite always said TechNexus was too stuck in their ways to innovate. I defended this company. I believed in what we were doing. You looked over your shoulder, meeting Nakamura's gaze. He was right. The door closed behind you with a satisfying click. In the hallway, you leaned against the wall, legs suddenly weak. Fired. You fired. Threatened with legal action. Your career potentially in ruins. All because you'd fallen for the most explosive, stubborn, incredible hero in Japan. Your phone buzzed in your pocket. Bakugo. Of course. How'd it go? You stared at the screen, fingers hovering over the keys. How did you even begin to explain what had just happened? But before you could respond, another message appeared. Got a surprise for you. Come to my agency when you're done. A surprise. Right. Because what you needed right now was another one of Bakugo's surprises. Like the mountain of merch he'd dumped in your apartment. Or the bombshell he'd apparently dropped on your now former employers. You'd deal with him later. Right now, you had a desk to clear and a career to salvage from the smoking ruins. If that was even possible anymore. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. You stood in the middle of Dynamite Agency's lobby, still clutching the sad cardboard box of desk items like a life preserver. Your eyes burned from holding back tears, your throat ached from swallowing screams. The agency was nothing like TechNexus. Where Nexus was all glass and steel and sterile white, Dynamite's headquarters pulsed with energy. The walls were painted a deep charcoal, offset by accents in his signature orange and black. Hero memorabilia lined glass cases. Not just Dynamites, but artifacts from historic rescues and villain takedowns. A massive screen displayed live feeds from patrol teams across the city. It felt alive. It felt like him. Can I help you? A receptionist with purple hair glanced at your box of office supplies. I'm here to see Ba Dynamite. You corrected yourself. Boundaries. Her eyes widened slightly. Oh, you're. Yeah, I'm the one from the photos, you said flatly. Can you just tell him I'm here? Before she could respond, a door banged open, and there he was. Your breath caught despite everything. Katsuki Bakugo in his professional element was something else. He wore fitted black pants and a sleeveless compression shirt that hugged every muscle. His hero costume gauntlets were missing, replaced by fingerless gloves that showed off his strong hands. His hair was swept back from his face, damp with sweat like he'd just finished training. He looked powerful, confident, completely in control. Everything you weren't right now. His eyes locked on you immediately. About fucking time. He strode across the lobby, oblivious maybe, to the stares from staff and visitors. What the hell took so long? The dam broke. Oh, I don't know, Ba Dynamite. Maybe getting fired and threatened with a lawsuit slowed me down a bit. His face darkened. Without a word, he took the box from your arms and grabbed your hand, pulling you through the lobby toward an elevator. Hold my calls, he barked at the receptionist, who nodded quickly. You had to be sadist to work here. The elevator doors closed, sealing you into silence with him. Your anger and fear bubbled up, filling the small space until you could hardly breathe. They fired you, he said. Not a question. They fired me, accused me of corporate espionage, and threatened to sue me into oblivion. You laughed because honestly that's all you could do. Oh, and someone's been taking pictures of us. Following us. Did you know that? The elevator dinged, opening into a spacious office with floor-to-ceiling windows. Bakugo pulled you inside, dropped your box on a conference table, and turned to face you. Yeah, I knew. Excuse me? You knew. Saw him last night, and this morning when I left your place. He crossed his arms, looking completely unrepentant. Some scrawny guy with a telephoto lens. Didn't bother hiding. You gaped at him. And you didn't think to mention this? To warn me. Why would I? He scowled. Figured it'd speed things up. Get you out of that shitty company faster. The blood drained from your face. You let him take those pictures on purpose? Not like I posed for them. His eye roll made your blood boil. But yeah, I didn't stop him. You stalked toward him, finger jabbing at his chest. Do you have any idea what you've done? They're threatening to sue me, Bakugo. They think I've been stealing designs for you. Let them try. He caught your hand, his grip firm but gentle. Their lawsuit is bullshit and they know it. Easy for you to say. You're not the one whose career is in flames. You yanked your hand away. They had lawyers, Bakugo. Like actual lawyers with actual accusations about actual damages. His lips twitched. You done? No, I'm not done. Your voice rose. Why didn't you tell me you terminated your contract this morning? Or that Chargebolt did too. They're blaming me for losing their top clients. What did you think was gonna happen? He stepped closer, eyes boring into yours. You think I'd keep working with a company that treats their best tech like shit? That I'd give them 1 more yen after they threatened to fire you for being with me? His words knocked the wind from your lungs. I didn't think. That's the problem. His voice softened just barely. You didn't think about what comes next. About what I'd do to protect what's mine. This jerk. I had a plan, you said, voice smaller now. I was going to give my 2 weeks' notice. Leave professionally. Not burn every bridge in the industry. Their bridges were shit anyway. A laugh escaped you, half sob. That's not how business works, Bakugo. It is when you work with me. He took your face in his hands, thumbs brushing your cheeks. I've got lawyers too. Better ones. They try to sue you, they'll regret it. You can't just. I can. His certainty was staggering. And I will. Nobody threatens you. Nobody ruins your career over some bullshit rules. Your head spun. Hours ago, your professional life had been in perfect order. Now everything was chaos, and the man before you seemed to revel in it. This isn't a game, you whispered. This is my life. My reputation. You think I don't know that? His eyes flashed. You think I'd let them destroy everything you've worked for? Something cracked in your chest, fear giving way to a terrible sense of hope. Why are you doing this? Your voice trembled. Why go to all this trouble for someone you've known for what? A few weeks. His hand slid from your face to your shoulders, gripping firmly. Because with me you'll be free. Free to create without their bullshit restrictions. Free to be with whoever you want without hiding. Free to be yours? The words slipped out before you could stop them. His eyes darkened. You already are. The certainty in his voice should have scared you. Instead, it felt like coming home. I'm still mad at you, you said, but the heat had drained from your words. He would protect you. You knew that like you knew the sky was blue. Good. His smile was sharp, hungry. I like you mad. You shook your head, fighting the smile tugging at your lips. You're impossible. Yeah. He pulled you against him, your head fitting perfectly under his chin. Get used to it. His arms tightened around you, solid and warm. The world outside this office, the threats, the accusations, the pictures, seemed to fade away in his embrace. Your body melted against his chest. He was just so warm and smelled so sweet. Stop looking so damn sad, he murmured against your hair. Makes me want to blow shit up. A watery laugh escaped you. That's your solution to everything. Works, doesn't it? Not re. His lips found yours. The kiss started gentle, almost tender, so unlike his usual forceful approach that it caught you off guard. His hands cradled your face like you were something precious, his thumbs brushing away tears you hadn't realized you'd shed. The tenderness broke something inside you. All the fear, the anger, the uncertainty of the day crashed down at once. You kissed him back with desperate intensity, fingers curling into his shirt, pulling him closer. You needed him. He was worth getting fired, sued, and probably permanently unemployed. He groaned against your mouth. His hands slid down your back, gripping your hips, lifting you slightly to better align your bodies. Jesus. What were you about to do? Wait, you gasped, breaking the kiss. Bakugo, stop. We're in your office. He smirked against your lips. My agency, my rules. Bakugo. His mouth dropped to your neck, trailing hot kisses down the sensitive skin. Your protest died in your throat, replaced by a soft moan. His teeth grazed your pulse point, and your knees nearly buckled. Still want me to stop? No. Yes. Maybe. Someone could walk in. You managed, though your hands betrayed you by sliding up his chest, feeling his hard muscles. Doors locked. His hands slipped under your blouse, calloused fingers tracing your ribs. Soundproofed walls. Of course his office was soundproofed. Probably to contain his explosive temper, and other activities, apparently. His hands moved higher, thumbs brushing the undersides of your boobs through your bra. Oh no, you were getting turned on, burning the last shreds of your common sense. You planned this, you accused, breath hitching as his teeth grazed your earlobe. Planned what? His innocent tone was belied by the wicked path of his hands. Bringing you here? Having you all to myself? Fuck yeah, I did. You smiled. Even now, with your world crashing down around you, he wanted you. Not just physically, but here in his space. His territory, as he'd call it. His mouth returned to yours, hungry and demanding. the hard edge of the conference table pressed against the back of your thighs as he backed you against it. His knee slid between your legs, and you couldn't stop the whimper that escaped you. Wait, you gasped against his lips. You said you had a surprise for me. His eyes darkened, pupils dilating. This isn't enough of a surprise? Bakugo. Darling. TCH. With visible reluctance, he pulled back slightly, though his hands remained possessive on your waist. Fine. Impatient nerd. You raised an eyebrow. Says the man who was just about to take me on his conference table. Still might. His grin was all predator. But yeah, I got something else for you first. He stepped away, leaving you cold without his body heat, and moved to his desk. The momentary space gave you a chance to catch your breath, to remember where you were. In Bakugo's agency. In his office. Where you'd just been about to. Nope. Not going there. You straightened your blouse, trying to look less like you'd just been thoroughly kissed by the #2 hero in Japan. When you glanced up, Bakugo was watching you with that intense stare that made your insides turn to liquid. Here. He held out a folder. You took it cautiously. What's this? Open it and find out. Inside was a contract. Not just any contract, an employment contract. With your name on it. For a position as lead support item developer at Dynamite Agency. Never would you have thought to see so many zeros next to your salary. This is triple what I was making at Nexus, you said faintly. Worth every yen. Your fingers traced the terms outlined in the document. Full creative control. Research budget. A team of your own. Everything you'd ever dreamed of having at Nexus, but could never quite reach. It was perfect. Too perfect. The doubt crept in like a shadow. When did you draw this up? Had it ready for a week. He crossed his arms, leaning against his desk. Was waiting for you to get sick of that shithole company. A week. A whole 7 days. Before you'd even slept together. Before this whole mess had exploded. Why? Because you're the best, he said simply, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. And I want the best. The words should have pleased you. They did, in a way. But beneath the compliment lurked something else. A nagging suspicion that this was too easy. Too convenient. Is this because we slept together? The words tumbled out. His face darkened. You think I'd offer you a job just because we fucked? Put that way, it did sound ridiculous. Bakugo wasn't exactly the type to hand out favors, even to people he was sleeping with. Maybe. No, but... You gestured helplessly at the contract. This feels like a handout. A handout. His voice rose. Did you miss the part where I said you're the fucking best? This isn't charity. It's business. Business that conveniently solves all my problems, you countered. And mine. He pushed off the desk, closing the distance between you again. You think I like watching my gear fail in the field? You think I like working with techs who can't keep up with me? Put that way, it made more sense. This wasn't just about you. It was about him getting what he wanted, the best support possible for his hero work. But it still felt too easy. Too simple a solution to the smoking ruins of your career. What if it doesn't work out? You asked quietly. Between us, I mean. His eyes searched yours. You planning on it not working? No, but... Then stop making up problems. His hands found your shoulders, grip firm but gentle. This is what I want. You here. Working for me. With me. With me. Maybe it was okay to let yourself be taken care of, just this once. Maybe it was okay to accept help from someone who clearly had the means, and the will, to provide it. You took a deep breath. Okay. His eyebrows shot up. Okay. I'll sign the contract. You reached for a pen on his desk. But I want it noted that I'm accepting this job based on my qualifications, not because we're sleeping together. A slow, satisfied smile spread across his face. Whatever helps you sleep at night, nerd. You rolled your eyes, uncapping the pen. And I expect to be treated like any other employee during working hours. Sure. His grin widened. You groaned. He was lying. You poised the pen over the signature line. All right. This was it. A new beginning. A fresh start. Working for Bakugo, with Bakugo. The pen hovered for 1 second. Exactly 1 second. Then Bakugo snatched it from your fingers. What are you doing? You asked as Bakugo tossed the pen over his shoulder, the smirk on his face growing more predatory with each passing second. You're not an employee yet, he growled, stalking toward you. Which means all those fucking boundaries you're so worried about don't exist. Your mouth went dry. Bakugo. No. His hand slid around your neck, thumb pressing gently under your jaw. You don't get to overthink this. Not now. His kiss was punishing, hot and demanding as he backed you against his desk. Your ass hit the edge and he lifted you easily, setting you on top of the polished surface. Papers scattered, a stapler crashed to the floor, but he didn't seem to care. You know how long I've thought about bending you over this desk? His voice was rough against your ear, his hands already working at your blouse. Every fucking night since I met you. You should protest. You should insist on signing that contract first. You needed to secure your future before you ended up homeless. Fuck. You gasped as his teeth found your collarbone, biting down just hard enough to make your back arch. That's it, he murmured, fingers making quick work of your buttons. Let me hear you. Your blouse fell open, and his crimson eyes darkened at the sight of your bra. Without hesitation, he yanked the cups down, exposing your tits to the cool air of his office. God damn, he breathed, cupping them in his calloused palms. Perfect. His mouth descended, hot and wet around your nipple. Your hands flew to his hair, gripping the soft spikes as pleasure shot straight to your pussy. The dual sensation of his tongue flicking one nipple while his fingers pinched the other had you squirming against the desk. Bakugo, you moaned, hips pressing forward, seeking friction. Seeking more of him. He pulled back, eyes wild. Say my name, he demanded. My real name. Katsuki, you whispered, then louder when his fingers twisted your nipple in reward. Katsuki. That's better. He shoved your skirt up around your waist, groaning when he found the damp patch on your underwear. Already wet for me? Fucking perfect. He hooked his fingers around the thin fabric and tore them clean off. Hey, you protested weakly. Those were expensive. I'll buy you more, he growled, dropping to his knees. Right now, I'm gonna make you scream. The first swipe of his tongue against your pussy had your head falling back, a moan tearing from your throat. He wasn't gentle, wasn't teasing. He devoured you like a man starving, tongue circling your clit before plunging into your entrance. Oh God, you gasped, hands scrambling for purchase on the slick desk. Katsuki, fuck. He hummed against your cunt, the vibration sending shockwaves through your body. His hands gripped your thighs, spreading them wider, opening you completely to his hungry mouth. You taste so fucking good, he growled against your folds. Could eat this pussy all day. 2 fingers thrust inside you without warning, curling to hit that spot that made stars explode behind your eyelids. Your hips bucked against his face, chasing the pleasure that was building too quickly, too intensely. That's it, he encouraged, pumping his fingers faster. Fuck my face. Show me how bad you want it. You couldn't have held back if you tried. Your body moved on its own, grinding against his mouth, fucking yourself on his fingers. The wet, obscene sounds filled the office, mixing with your desperate moans. I'm going to. Come for me, he demanded, sealing his lips around your clit and sucking hard. The orgasm hit you like one of his explosions, white-hot and violent. Your thighs clamped around his head, your body arching off the desk. Before you could catch your breath, he was standing, ripping open his pants. His cock sprang free, thick and hard, the head glistening with precum. My turn, he growled, gripping your hips and yanking you to the edge of the desk. He lined himself up and slammed into you in one brutal thrust, bottoming out inside your still-pulsing cunt. The stretch burned in the most delicious way, pulling a ragged cry from your lips. Fuck, so tight, he hissed, hips already starting to move. Take it. Take all of me. Your hands found his shoulders, nails digging into the hard muscle. Each thrust drove you back on the desk, papers crinkling beneath your ass. He leaned over you, one hand braced beside your head, the other gripping your throat lightly as he pounded into you. Look at me, he demanded, and your eyes snapped to his. Watch me fuck you on my desk. Watch me make you mine. His dick hit so deep you could practically feel him in your throat, each thrust precise and devastating. The desk rocked beneath you, pens and paperweights crashing to the floor. Harder, you begged, past caring how desperate you sounded. Please, Katsuki, harder, he growled, reaching down to hike your leg over his shoulder. The new angle let him drive even deeper, hitting spots that made your vision blur. You like that, he grunted. Like my cock splitting you open? Yes, you gasped, feeling another orgasm building. God, yes. His thumb found your clit, rubbing tight circles as his pace grew punishing. Come on my dick. Now. Your second orgasm hit even harder than the first, your walls clamping down on his length, milking him as you screamed his name. He cursed, his rhythm faltering as your pussy spasmed around him. Fuck, I'm gonna. His thrusts grew erratic, desperate. With a final brutal snap of his hips, he buried himself to the hilt and came with a roar, his cock pulsing inside you. For a moment you both stayed frozen, panting, his forehead pressed against yours as aftershocks rippled through your joined bodies. Holy shit, you finally managed. He straightened, looking down at you with a mixture of satisfaction. His eyes traveled over your disheveled form, blouse open, skirt bunched around your waist, tits marked with his teeth. Your body went limp against the desk, skin sticky with sweat and other fluids as reality slowly filtered back in. You'd just had sex with Katsuki Bakugo on his office desk. After getting fired. Before signing your new employment contract. God, your life had turned into a train wreck in the span of 24 hours. You okay? Bakugo's voice was surprisingly gentle as he pulled out of you. Define okay, you mumbled, arm thrown over your eyes. He snorted, and you heard the rustle of fabric as he fixed his clothes. Then, to your surprise, he scooped you up into his arms. What are you doing? You asked, too boneless to resist. Taking care of you, he said simply, carrying you to a door you hadn't noticed before. It opened to reveal a small bathroom. He set you down carefully on the counter, and wet a hand towel with warm water. He cleaned between your legs. This was a side of him you'd only glimpsed, careful, attentive, almost tender. You liked it. I can do that myself, you protested weakly. Shut up and let me, he replied, but there was no heat in his words. His crimson eyes were focused on your pussy, brows furrowed in concentration, as if this were as important as any hero mission. When he finished, he helped you fix your clothes, his fingers surprisingly deft as he buttoned your blouse. Your torn underwear was a lost cause, and the knowledge that you'd be going commando for the rest of the day made you uncomfortably horny. You're smiling, he observed, thumb brushing your bottom lip. Just thinking about how my life's gone completely sideways in less than a day, you admitted. Fired, sued, and now I'm pantyless in the number 2 hero's private bathroom. His laugh was low and warm. Could be worse. Oh really? How? Could have been the number 1 hero's bathroom. You laughed. Even after everything, the firing, the threats, the mind-blowing sex, he could still make you laugh. That had to count for something. Back in his office, you surveyed the disaster zone of his desk. Papers scattered, items knocked to the floor, a suspicious wet spot on what looked like important documents. So, you gestured at the contract, somehow still intact amid the chaos. I should probably sign that now. He retrieved the pen from where he'd tossed it, and handed it to you with a smirk. Unless you need more convincing. You rolled your eyes, taking the pen. I think I'm convinced, thanks. Your hand hovered over the signature line. This was it. A new chapter. Working for with Bakugo. The man who'd turned your life upside down in the best and worst ways possible. You're overthinking again, he said, arms crossed over his chest. I just got fired and threatened with a lawsuit for sleeping with you. You reminded him. Excuse me if I'm a little hesitant to jump right into working for you. His expression softened just barely. Nobody's gonna mess with you here. My agency, my rules. It wasn't just the protection he offered that swayed you. It was everything. The absolute conviction that you belonged here. With him. You signed your name with a flourish. There, you said, handing him the contract. Happy now? Getting there, he replied, tucking the document into a folder. The hunter gleam in his eyes made your stomach flip. One condition, you said quickly before he could get any ideas. No more sex in the building. I mean it, Bakugo. If I'm going to work here, we need boundaries. You expected an argument. A scoff. Some declaration about how he'd fuck you wherever he wanted. Instead, his lips curved into that damnable smirk. He didn't say a word. Didn't need to. That smirk told you everything. And despite your best efforts to appear stern, you weren't entirely sure you wanted him to. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. You balanced the delicate circuit board between your fingers, squinting at the minuscule connection points that needed soldering. A week into your new job, and your workspace at Dynamite Agency already felt more like home than your desk at TechNexus ever had. Needless to say, the 1-week trial period flew by. Pass me the microsolder, would you? You asked, not looking up from your work. Hideo, one of the junior techs assigned to your team, yes, that's right, assigned, slid the tool across the workbench. You're seriously going to hand solder that? The machine would be faster. Machines make mistakes. You positioned the magnifying lamp closer. Especially on prototype components. The support lab hummed with activity around you. 3 other techs working on various projects, music playing softly from someone's speakers. The space was different from TechNexus, darker, with exposed brick walls and better equipment. So much better equipment. Is this for Dynamite's new gauntlet design? Hideo peered over your shoulder, curiosity outweighing his usual shyness. No, this is for ChargeBolt. You smiled. Dynamite's busy with that drug trafficking case. Hasn't had time for equipment upgrades. You'd barely seen Bakugo since signing your contract. The occasional text message, a missed call at 2 a.m. that you'd slept through. Part of you was grateful for the space. It gave you time to establish yourself here on your own merits, not as Dynamite's tech, or whatever gossip might have followed you from Nexus. Another part of you missed him with an intensity that was honestly embarrassing. You call him Dynamite too? Even though you worked with him before? May asked from across the room, where she was tinkering with what looked like a flamethrower. Your hand stilled for a half-second before continuing its precise work. He's our boss, right? May snorted. Try telling him that. Last week he blew up half the training room because someone put sugar in his protein shake. He didn't actually blow it up, Hideo corrected. Just charred it. A bit. You bit back a smile. That sounded like Bakugo all right. He's fair though, Takashi, the oldest tech on your team, chimed in. Scary as hell, but fair. If you do good work, he leaves you alone. Make mistakes that put heroes in danger. He made an explosion sound, hands mimicking Bakugo's quirk. You smiled again. They respected him. Were terrified of him, sure, but it wasn't the toxic fear that had permeated TechNexus. Here, people worked hard because they wanted to, not because they were afraid of getting fired. Speaking of the devil, May whispered, eyes fixed on something behind you. Your heart skipped as you spun around, half expecting to see him. All explosive energy and piercing crimson eyes. but the doorway remained empty. Very funny, you muttered, turning back to your work, ignoring the disappointment that settled in your stomach. Had you going though, May grinned. You're the only person I've met who doesn't look like they're about to pee themselves when Dynamite shows up. You carefully set down your tools. We worked together before. I'm used to his intensity. What you weren't used to was missing it. You bent closer to the workbench, your nose nearly touching the surface as you squinted at the tiny sensor you were modifying. The clock on the wall showed 9:18 p.m. Everyone else had left hours ago, but this piece for Cinder's new support gear couldn't wait. Bakugo's sidekick needed the enhanced heat resistance if he was going to keep up with his mentor's explosive battle style. The workshop hummed with the quiet buzz of machines on standby. You dimmed most of the lights, keeping only your workspace illuminated in a pool of bright white. Your eyes burned from fatigue, but satisfaction coursed through you as the delicate circuits came together under your hands. This was your element. This was where you belonged. Your back ached from hunching over the bench for so long. You rolled your shoulders, closing your eyes for just a moment. Strong arms wrapped around your waist from behind. You yelped, nearly dropping the delicate component. Jumpy, aren't you? His voice was low in your ear, rough from a long day. Your heart hammered against your ribs, but you relaxed into the familiar scent of caramel and smoke. Jesus, Dynamite. Warn a person next time. His arms tightened, chin coming to rest on your shoulder. What are you still doing here? Working. You gestured to the scattered components. Some of us have deadlines. It's almost 10. Wow, you can read a clock. Impressive. His chuckle vibrated against your back, warm breath tickling your neck. Despite your best efforts, your body responded to his closeness, a tingling heat spreading through your chest. How are you doing? He asked, softer now. The genuine concern in his voice caught you off guard. You set down your tools carefully, not trusting your suddenly unsteady hands. I'm fine. Busy. The new team is great. You twisted slightly to look at him. How about you? Haven't seen much of you lately. His expression darkened. Been tracking those trigger dealers. The ones from the convenience store. Any luck? Getting closer. His fingers absently stroked your hip. Small-time pushers keep pointing to bigger fish. Just gotta find the source. You nodded, trying to focus on his words instead of his touch. Well, Mr. Dynamite, some of us have work to finish, so if you don't mind. His grip tightened. Don't call me that. What? You blinked innocently. Mr. Dynamite? But it's your hero name. Sir. The growl that rumbled from his chest sent a shiver down your spine. You know damn well what I mean. I'm just being professional. Mr. Dynamite. You couldn't help the smile that tugged at your lips. Something about pushing his buttons was just so fun. He spun your stool around, trapping you between his arms as he leaned in. Say my name. Technically, as an employee of Dynamite Agency, I should address you with proper. His mouth crashed into yours, cutting off your teasing. The kiss was hungry, demanding, his tongue sweeping past your lips without preamble. Your hands shot to his shoulders, torn between pushing him away and pulling him closer. When he finally pulled back, you were both breathing hard. Say it, he demanded, eyes blazing. Make me, sir. His expression darkened with want. You asking for trouble, nerd? Before you could respond, his lips were on your neck, teeth grazing the sensitive spot just below your ear. One hand slid up your side, thumb brushing the underside of your breast through your shirt. We're at work, you protested weakly, even as your head tilted to give him better access. My agency, he murmured against your skin. My rules. His hand moved higher, palming your breast. Even through the fabric of your bra, your nipple hardened instantly at his touch. Bah! You bit your lip, refusing to give in so easily. Dynamite. We talked about this. No workplace funny business. He pulled back just enough to meet your gaze, his crimson eyes dark with desire. Missed you. Those two simple words nearly crumbled your resolve. It had been a week of quick texts and missed calls. A week of settling into your new role, trying to prove yourself to your team. A week without his touch, his voice, his irritating, intoxicating presence. You missed him too. So much it scared you. We agreed on boundaries, you reminded him, your voice steadier than you felt. Professional at work. Personal at home. It's after hours, he countered, fingers tracing circles on your back. Nobody's here. You swallowed hard. Still the workplace. My workplace. Our workplace now, you corrected, gently pushing at his chest. And I need my team to respect me as their leader, not as your. You trailed off, unsure how to finish that sentence. Girlfriend? Lover? Something more complicated that didn't have a convenient label? His eyes softened fractionally. Nobody would disrespect you. Not to my face, maybe. But office gossip is brutal. You sighed, letting your forehead rest against his chest for a moment. I need to establish myself here, Bakugo. On my own terms. He was quiet for a long moment, his heartbeat steady under your ear. Finally, he stepped back, giving you space. Fine, he grumbled. But you're still not calling me Dynamite. A smile tugged at your lips. What about Mr. Dynamite, sir? I will throw you over my shoulder and carry you out of this building, he threatened, though the hint of a smile betrayed him. How very professional of you, Mr. Dynamite. That's it. He moved as if to grab you, and you squealed, darting away from him around the workbench. Can't manhandle your employees, Dynamite. There are rules. Rules. He stalked toward you, a predatory gleam in his eyes. Show me where it says I can't chase my girlfriend around her lab. Your heart stuttered at the word girlfriend. He'd never used that term before. Article 7, Section 3 of the Workplace Conduct Guidelines. You improvised, backing up as he advanced. No chasing of subordinates allowed. Funny, don't remember signing that. It was in the fine print when you hired me. His laugh was short but genuine. You're so full of shit. That's lead support developer full of shit to you, Mr. Dynamite. He lunged, and you darted away again, both of you circling the workbench like children playing tag. Your fatigue from moments ago had vanished, replaced by bubbling laughter, and the electric thrill of his pursuit. When I catch you, he warned. If you catch me, I'm going to make you say my name so many times you forget any others exist. Heat bloomed in your cheeks at the promise in his voice. Highly unprofessional, Mr. Katsuki, he growled. The sound of his given name on your lips felt intimate in a way that still surprised you. Fine, Katsuki. He stopped his pursuit, satisfaction written across his features. Was that so hard? Excruciating, you deadpanned. His smile, a rare, genuine thing, did funny things to your insides. You'd never get used to it. Finish up here, he said, nodding toward your abandoned work. I'll wait. You don't have to. Want to? He leaned against the wall, arms crossed over his chest. Then I'm taking you home. Yes, sir, Mr. Dynamite, sir. You couldn't resist adding with a little mock salute. His eye roll was spectacular. As you turned back to your work, you couldn't keep the smile off your face. This ridiculous, wonderful, infuriating man. A week ago, your world had been turned upside down, fired, threatened, adrift. Now, bickering with Bakugo in your new workshop, everything felt right. Chapter 15. I don't give a shit about their non-compete clause. Bakugo slammed his fist on the conference table, making the water glasses jump. I want that company buried. 3 lawyers in expensive suits sat across from him, their faces carefully neutral despite the explosion of temper. The oldest, Tanaka, with his silver-streaked hair and wire-rimmed glasses, cleared his throat. Mr. Dynamite, while I understand your enthusiasm, there are legal channels we must follow. Bakugo's palm sparked, a tiny warning crackle that made the youngest lawyer flinch. They threatened her, fired her for something that wasn't against their policy, then tried to blackmail her into signing away her rights. The memory made his blood boil all over again. The hollow look in her eyes when she'd told him how they'd threatened her career, how they'd made her feel worthless after years of dedicated work. All because of him. Because she dared to be with him. No one fucked with what was his. No one. According to their company handbook, the female lawyer began. I read the fucking handbook. Bakugo cut her off. Front to back. Twice. There's nothing in there about dating clients after a project ends. He'd spent an entire night going through that handbook, looking for any justification for what they'd done to her. Found nothing but vague bullshit about professional conduct that could be twisted a dozen different ways. Tanaka nodded. That's correct. However, they're claiming she shared proprietary designs. She didn't. Bakugo's voice dropped dangerously low. Every design she's made for me since joining my agency has been from scratch. I watched her throw out her first 3 prototypes because they were too similar to what she'd done at Nexus. He'd seen her working until 3 a.m., dark circles under her eyes as she scrapped hours of work because she was paranoid about inadvertently using something she'd learned at her old job. It had taken everything in him not to march down to Nexus and blast the whole building to rubble. The youngest lawyer, Yoshida, scrolled through his tablet. They've filed for an injunction to prevent her from working on any support equipment for the next 6 months, citing trade secrets concerns. Bakugo's quirk sparked again, stronger this time. A small scorch mark appeared on the polished conference table. Not happening. His voice was deadly quiet. She doesn't stop working. Not for a single fucking day. Mr. Dynamite, Tanaka started. No. Bakugo stood, looming over the table. Let me be crystal clear. You 3 are the best legal team in this city. I'm paying you enough to buy a small island. I don't want to hear about channels or procedures, or how we need to play nice. I want solutions. He paced to the window, staring out at the city skyline. His city. The one he protected every day, putting his life on the line without hesitation. But he couldn't protect her from this legal bullshit, these sharks in suits trying to destroy her career because their egos were bruised. It made him feel fucking helpless. And Bakugo hated feeling helpless. They're not touching her, he said, his back still to the lawyers. I don't care what it costs. I don't care what strings you have to pull. Tech Nexus tries to come after her. You bury them so deep they'll need a fucking excavation team to find what's left. He turned back to face them, catching the looks they exchanged. They thought he was overreacting. That this was just about him throwing his weight around, or worse, just about getting laid. They had no idea what she meant to him. How watching her hunched over a workbench, bringing his ideas to life with those clever hands, made something in his chest tighten. How her sarcastic comebacks and refusal to back down challenged him in ways no villain ever had. This isn't negotiable, he added, voice flat. Either you handle it, or I find someone who will. Tanaka sighed, removing his glasses. We understand, Mr. Dynamite, and we will handle it. But you need to let us do our jobs without explosive interventions. Bakugo dropped back into his chair. Fine. What's the plan? As the lawyers outlined their strategy, countersuits for wrongful termination, defamation, and harassment, Bakugo's mind wandered to her. Working downstairs in the lab, probably elbow deep in circuitry, unaware he was up here plotting corporate warfare on her behalf. She'd be pissed if she knew. Would call him overprotective, tell him she could fight her own battles. Maybe she could, but she didn't have to. Not anymore. Not while he had anything to say about it. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. 3 fucking weeks for this bullshit? Bakugo hissed, binoculars pressed against his eyes as he watched the warehouse across the street. Rain dripped down his neck despite the hood of his stealth gear, adding to his foul mood. If this tip is wrong, I'm blowing up that snitch myself. 3 weeks of chasing shadows. 3 weeks of dead ends. 3 weeks without holding her. Your sunny personality has been missed by all, Kirishima whispered from his position to Bakugo's right, not bothering to hide his grin. Especially by a certain tech specialist. Bakugo ignored him, adjusting the focus on his binoculars. The warehouse sat dark and quiet in the industrial district, its metal walls slick with rain. According to their informant, this was where the bulk trigger shipments came through before distribution to street-level dealers. The same shit from the convenience store. The same shit that had interrupted what should have been a very different end to his night with her. Anything, Kaminari announced. Negative, Bakugo replied, scanning the perimeter again. No movement. His team was spread out in a half-mile radius. Kaminari monitoring electrical signals from a nearby rooftop, 2 sidekicks stationed at the back exits, and Kirishima right here, practically breathing down his neck with that fucking shit-eating smirk. So, Kirishima started again, his voice low enough that the comms wouldn't pick it up. How's the girlfriend? Shut up. That good, huh? Bakugo's fingers tightened around the binoculars. I'm trying to fucking work here. You've been trying to work for 3 weeks straight. Even heroes need breaks, man. Tell that to the trigger dealers flooding my city with their shit. Your city? Kirishima chuckled. Don't let Deka hear you talking like that. Bakugo's jaw clenched. Fuck off. The truth was, he hadn't meant to lose himself in this case for so long. One day bled into the next, following leads, interrogating pushers, piecing together the supply chain. Each night he told himself he'd stop by the lab, see her, touch her. And each night another tip came in. Another lead. Another reason to push it off until tomorrow. His phone buzzed in his pocket. A text. He shouldn't check it. Not during a stakeout. But his hand moved before his brain could stop it. Working late again. Don't wait up. No pet names. No teasing. Just facts. That's how their texts had been lately. Brief updates passing each other like ships in the night. He'd come home to find her already asleep, or she'd wake to find him gone. He typed back. Target in sight. Be careful getting home. 3 dots appeared, vanished, then reappeared. Always am. Be safe, Katsuki. Something twisted in his chest. 3 weeks ago, she'd have added a joke. Called him Mr. Dynamite just to piss him off. Now it was just his name, like she was keeping her distance even in text. She doing okay? Kirishima asked, nodding at the phone Bakugo was staring at. Fine. Yeah. Because that face says otherwise. Bakugo shoved the phone back in his pocket. What face? The I miss my girl but I'm too stubborn to admit it face. I don't have a face like that. Bro. Kirishima gave him a flat look. You've had that face for 3 weeks. Before Bakugo could tell him where to shove his observations, Pikachu's voice came through the comm again. Hey, got some news while we're waiting for these assholes to show. My buddy at the business beat says Tech Nexus is filing for bankruptcy. Bakugo's head snapped up. What? Yeah, apparently they lost like half their clients after that scandal with their best engineer getting fired. And then there's the lawsuit. Kaminari's voice had that annoying sing-song quality it got when he was enjoying sharing gossip. Something about a very angry, very wealthy hero sicking his legal team on them. Huh. Bakugo tried to sound disinterested, but warmth spread through his chest. Couldn't have happened to nicer people. Dude, what did your lawyers even do? Kaminari asked. Their jobs. Kirishima snorted. Translation. He told them to destroy Tech Nexus, and they did. They threatened her career, Bakugo said, voice low. Nobody gets away with that shit. There was a pause on the comm, then Kaminari's voice softer now. You really care about her, huh? Bakugo didn't answer. Didn't need to. The fact that he'd spent a small fortune on legal fees to crush a company that had hurt her said enough. It's weird seeing Bakugo all protective over someone who isn't us, Kaminari continued, clearly not valuing his life. Remember when he used to say relationships were for weaklings? I'm right here, Pikachu, Bakugo growled into the comm. Oh, I know, Kaminari laughed. So when are you going to make it official? Get her a ring? Little exploding Bakugos running around. Bakugo's face burned hot enough to evaporate the raindrops sliding down his cheeks. I will fry your circuits. Movement, Kirishima cut in sharply, all traces of humor gone. Northwest corner. Bakugo's focus snapped back to the warehouse, where a shadow was moving along the wall. Then another. 2 figures slipping through a side door that hadn't been there before. Count, Kaminari asked. 2 entering, Bakugo confirmed, scanning the perimeter. Could be more inside. His heartbeat quickened, adrenaline washing away the fatigue of the long stakeout. This was it. After weeks of dead ends, they finally had their targets in sight. So why did part of him wish he was somewhere else? Positions, he ordered, shoving the thought away. Charge Bolt, cut their power on my signal. Riot, you're with me through the front. Sidekicks hold the exits, no one gets past you. A chorus of affirmatives came through the comm. Bakugo tucked his phone away, double-checked his gauntlets. The ones she'd redesigned for him, with the micro-adjustments that let him control his explosions with surgical precision. Perfect for a situation like this, where they needed to take down targets without leveling the building. Hey, Shitty Hair said quietly. We got this. And then you can go home to her. Bakugo nodded once, a tight jerk of his chin. 3 weeks was too damn long. After tonight, he was taking a day off. Maybe 2. Enough time to remind her, and himself, why they'd both risked so much to be together. But first, these trigger-dealing bastards were going down. On my mark, he said, muscles coiling as he prepared to move. Rain plastered his hair to his forehead, his heartbeat a steady drum in his ears. She'd be proud of him for this. For bringing down the supply chain, for using the tech she built to protect the city. Not that he needed her approval, but the thought of her smile when he told her made something warm unfurl in his chest. Now, the warehouse plunged into darkness as Kaminari cut the power. Bakugo launched himself forward, palms sparking with contained explosions as he moved through the rain toward his target. Darkness swallowed the warehouse as Bakugo burst through the entrance, the metal door giving way with a satisfying crunch under his boot. His night vision goggles painted the world in eerie green, revealing stacks of shipping containers and the startled faces of men scrambling for weapons. We've got 7 targets, he growled into his comm. Pikachu, keep the lights dead. Riot, left flank. Kirishima hardened his skin with a grin that flashed white in the darkness. On it, Bakugo didn't wait. He launched himself forward to propel his body across the warehouse floor. The first guy never saw him coming, just felt Bakugo's fist connect with his jaw. The crack echoed through the cavernous space. 1 down, Bakugo muttered, rolling to his feet. Gunfire erupted from the back corner, bullets pinging off Kirishima's hardened skin as he charged 3 men huddled behind a stack of crates. Bullets, really? Kirishima laughed. Come on, that's just sad. Bakugo ducked behind a container, assessing the layout. 2 men with guns covering Kirishima. 1 unconscious at Bakugo's feet. At least 3 more moving between the shadows, trying to flank them. They thought they had the advantage in the dark. They were wrong. He tapped his gauntlet. He needed more precise control. Charge Bolt status? Bakugo demanded. Perimeter secure. Kaminari's voice crackled through the comm. 2 tried to bolt out the back door. They're taking a little nap now. Get your ass in here, Bakugo ordered. We need your light show. A figure moved in Bakugo's peripheral vision, someone trying to circle behind him. Without turning, he raised his gauntlet and fired a precise blast. The explosion was small but targeted, knocking the guy off his feet with a pained yelp. 2 down, he counted. Across the warehouse, Kirishima had engaged the gunman, his hardened fists slamming into soft flesh. The sounds of the fight, grunts, impacts, cursing, echoed through the metal structure. A door slammed open at the far end, flooding the corner with moonlight. Kaminari stood silhouetted in the entrance, electricity dancing across his skin. Ladies and gentlemen, Kaminari called, his voice playful despite the tension. It's showtime. Light erupted from Kaminari's body, arcing through the warehouse in controlled bursts. Not enough to fry anyone's brain, just enough to illuminate the space in staccato flashes, disorienting their opponents while giving Bakugo and Kirishima clear targets. In the electric glow, Bakugo spotted a large man charging toward him, brass knuckles glinting on meaty fists. Something about the way he moved, the unnatural speed, the veins bulging at his temples, told Bakugo everything he needed to know. We've got at least 1 trigger user, he barked into the comm. Big guy, heading my way. Want some help? Kirishima called, grappling with his own opponent. I got this, Bakugo snarled, crouching into a fighting stance. The big guy closed the distance with inhuman speed, swinging a fist that would have taken Bakugo's head off if it had connected. Bakugo ducked, feeling the air whoosh past his ear, then countered with an uppercut enhanced by a small explosion. The guy barely flinched. Fuck, Bakugo muttered. Definitely trigger. He needed to adjust his strategy. The drug amplified quirks and physical abilities, but it also made users reckless, overconfident. Bakugo could use that. That the best you got, hero? The man taunted, spittle flying from his lips. Bakugo grinned, the expression more predatory than friendly. Just warming up, asshole. He fired his gauntlets again, not at the man but at the floor between them, filling the space with smoke and debris. Through the haze, he circled, looking for an opening. Across the warehouse, Kaminari had joined the fight directly, his body crackling with electricity as he engaged two men at once. His fighting style was all speed and precision, darting in to deliver shocks before dancing away again, keeping his opponents off balance. Dynamite! Kirishima shouted. You're 3 o'clock. Bakugo spun just in time to catch a punch on his forearm. Pain shot up to his shoulder, but he used the man's momentum against him, grabbing the extended arm and twisting. A satisfying pop told him he'd dislocated the guy's shoulder. The trigger-enhanced man howled, more in rage than pain, and charged again like a wounded bull. This time Bakugo was ready. He timed it perfectly, waiting until the man was fully committed to his charge before sidestepping and catching him with a precisely calibrated blast from both gauntlets. The explosion threw the man into a stack of crates that collapsed with a thunderous crash. 3 down, Bakugo panted, already looking for his next target. Kirishima had subdued his opponents, their unconscious bodies scattered around him like fallen bowling pins. His hardened skin gleamed in Kaminari's electric light, not a scratch on him. Show off, Bakugo muttered. Just doing my job, bro. Kirishima grinned, moving to help Kaminari with his remaining opponent. Bakugo scanned the warehouse, counting bodies. 6 down. At least one more unaccounted for. He tapped his comm sidekicks. Status? All clear outside, came the response. No one's left the building, which meant their final target was still here, hiding somewhere among the maze of shipping containers and crates. Spread out, Bakugo ordered. Find the last one, and find the trigger. They moved through the warehouse methodically, checking hiding spots, securing the unconscious dealers. Bakugo's senses were hyper-alert, his body humming with leftover adrenaline. Sweat trickled down his back despite the cool air seeping through the open doors. He paused at a large shipping container, the padlock conspicuously new compared to the rust-covered doors. His instincts screamed that he'd found what they were looking for. Over here, he called, examining the lock. Kirishima jogged over, his skin returning to normal. Want me to open it? Bakugo stepped back. Be my guest. With a grin, Kirishima hardened his hand into something resembling a blade and sliced through the lock. The metal fell away with a clang. Ready? Kirishima asked, hand on the door. Bakugo raised his gauntlet, prepared for anything. Do it! The door swung open, and there, huddled in the far corner of the empty container, was a scrawny man clutching a metal briefcase to his chest. Don't move! Bakugo barked. The man froze, his eyes wide with terror. Not a fighter, then. Probably the accountant or the one in charge of the product. Please, the man stammered. I just moved the merchandise. I don't. Save it. Bakugo cut him off, stepping into the container. Hand it over. The man hesitated, then slowly extended the briefcase. Bakugo snatched it, popping the latches with his thumb. Inside, nestled in foam cutouts, were dozens of vials filled with luminescent blue liquid. Trigger, enough to enhance a small army of villains. Jackpot, Kirishima murmured, peering over Bakugo's shoulder. Charge bolt, Bakugo called. Get in here. We found it. Kaminari whistled low as he approached. Holy shit. That's a lot of trigger. Bakugo handed the case to him, his focus already shifting to the terrified man cowering in the corner. What else you got? And nothing. I swear. Bakugo's palm sparked. Lying to me isn't gonna improve your night. The man's eyes darted between Bakugo's face and his crackling palm. The papers. In the case. Under the foam. Kaminari lifted the foam insert, revealing a manila folder. He's right. Got some documents here. Bakugo turned to Kirishima. Get this trash secured for the police. He jerked his head toward the trembling dealer. I want to see what Pikachu found. While Kirishima hauled the dealer away, Bakugo stepped out of the container and flipped through the documents Kaminari held out. Invoices. Shipping manifests. Payment records. One name jumped out, making his blood freeze in his veins. TechNexus Solutions. The fuck? He muttered, scanning the page again to make sure he hadn't misread it. But there it was, clear as day. Invoices from TechNexus to an unnamed client for specialized portable distribution devices. The pieces clicked together in his head. Not just drug dealers with custom tech. Find anything else? He asked Kaminari, his voice tight with barely controlled rage. Just finished securing the perimeter. Haven't had a chance to. We need to search everything. Bakugo cut him off. Every crate, every container. Now. Kaminari blinked at his intensity. What's got you? Just do it. Kirishima jogged back over, concern etched on his face. Police are 5 minutes out. What's wrong? Bakugo thrust the documents at him. TechNexus. They've been supplying these assholes with equipment. Kirishima's eyes widened as he scanned the papers. Shit. You don't think she... Don't even finish that sentence, Bakugo growled. She had nothing to do with this. But I need to know what they were building. They split up, systematically searching the warehouse. Most crates contained what you'd expect, drugs, cash, weapons. But in the back corner, hidden behind a false wall, they found a small storage room filled with electronic equipment. Bakugo's heart pounded in his ears as he surveyed the devices. Sleek, black, with hidden compartments that could easily conceal vials of trigger. Distribution tech disguised as everyday items. Watches, pens, even what looked like children's toys. His stomach twisted with disgust. But what made his blood run cold was the design. The circuitry. The way the components fit together. He'd seen this work before. In his own gear. No, he whispered, picking up one of the devices. He turned it over, examining the way the circuit board was laid out. The tiny signature etched in the corner confirmed his worst fear. Her design. Her work. Her fucking signature. Red clouded his vision. His palm heated, smoke curling from his fingertips. Whoa, man. Kirishima stepped forward, placing a steady hand on Bakugo's shoulder. Don't blow the evidence. They used her designs, Bakugo snarled, his voice barely human. Those fuckers stole her work to distribute trigger, Kaminari finished, his usual joking demeanor replaced with quiet anger. But that doesn't mean she knew. Of course she didn't know. Bakugo snapped. The very suggestion made him want to blast a hole through the wall. We know that, Kirishima said, his voice calm but firm. But we need this evidence intact if we're going to prove it. Bakugo forced himself to breathe, to loosen his white-knuckled grip on the device. Kirishima was right. Destroying evidence wouldn't help her. Wouldn't help anyone except the scumbags who'd used her designs for their dirty work. They were blackmailing her, he realized aloud, the pieces falling into place. That's why they came after her so hard when she left. They were scared she'd figure it out. He set the device down carefully and continued searching, methodically checking every container, every corner. In a desk drawer, he found what he was looking for, a file labeled with her name. His hands shook slightly as he opened it. Inside were photos. Her entering his agency. The two of them at the bar. Even ones taken through her apartment window. They'd been watching her, planning to use her relationship with him against her if she ever discovered what they were doing. Something dark and primitive took root in Bakugo's chest. A killing rage that made his previous anger seem like a mild irritation. These people had threatened her. Stalked her. Planned to destroy her if she didn't play along with their sick game. Bakugo! Kirishima's voice came from far away. Bro, you're smoking. He looked down to see scorch marks spreading from his hands across the file. With effort, he tamped down his quirk. Police are here, Kaminari said from the doorway. And you might want to see this. He held out a tablet they'd found, open to an email chain between TechNexus executives. Bakugo skimmed it, his jaw clenching tighter with each line. They'd been desperate after losing clients. Turned to less ethical revenue streams. And when she'd been hired by Bakugo, they'd panicked, afraid she'd recognize her own stolen designs in the tech that was showing up at crime scenes. The plan had been simple: discredit her, threaten her career, make sure no one would believe her. I'm gonna kill them, Bakugo said flatly. No, Kirishima said. You're gonna let the police handle this. And then you're gonna make sure she never has to worry about these assholes again. Bakugo looked at his friend, at the stern resolve on his usually cheerful face. It's fine, he conceded. But I'm gonna be there when they go down. By dawn, they'd finished processing the scene. The dealers were in custody, the evidence secured. And Bakugo had copies of everything linking TechNexus to the trigger operation. He hadn't called her. Hadn't texted. Didn't want to wake her with this nightmare. But as he stood outside Aiko Nakamura's home at 4 a.m., he knew the nightmare was just beginning for others. The door opened after his third aggressive knock. Nakamura looked half asleep, confusion giving way to fear as she recognized him. Mr. Dynamite, what? Inside, he growled. Now. She stepped back, allowing him in, her face pale. If this is about the lawsuit. It's about Trigger, he cut her off. It's about stolen designs. It's about your company supplying drug dealers with tech. The blood drained from her face. I don't know what you're. Save it. He slapped the file on her coffee table. Police are already at your offices. Everyone involved is going down for this. She sank onto her couch, staring at the evidence with horror. I never approved. I don't care what you knew or didn't know, Bakugo said, his voice deadly quiet. Here's what happens now. You drop the lawsuit against her. You make a public statement clearing her name. You admit your company stole her designs. But my career is over, he finished for her. But you've got bigger problems than your career. Trafficking Trigger carries a minimum 20-year sentence. Nakamura's hands trembled as she leafed through the documents. There must be some mistake. We design support gear, not. You designed ways to hide and distribute drugs, Bakugo corrected her. Using her work. After threatening to destroy her career. He leaned down, palms flat on the coffee table, his eyes boring into hers. You're done messing with what's mine. Nakamura's face crumpled, the realization of her company's impending doom finally sinking in. Bakugo didn't give a shit about her tears or the trembling hands she pressed against her mouth. All he could see was his girl, hunched over her workbench at 3 a.m., terrified of accidentally using knowledge from her old job. All because of this woman and her fucked-up company. You're calling your lawyers. Now. He straightened up, crossing his arms. While I watch. It's 4 in the morning, she stammered. Bakugo's laugh was sharp enough to cut glass. You think I care? Wake them up. Tell them to withdraw every lawsuit, every claim, every fucking piece of paper with her name on it. When Nakamura hesitated, he let his palms spark, just enough to remind her who she was dealing with. I can have the police here in 2 minutes, he said, voice deceptively calm. Or you can make the call. Your choice. She reached for her phone with shaking hands, scrolling through contacts. Good. At least she wasn't completely stupid. Bakugo watched her place the call on speaker, his jaw clenched so tight he could feel a headache forming at his temples. The lawyer answered on the 4th ring, voice thick with sleep. Miss Nakamura? What's? We need to withdraw all legal actions against the former employee. Nakamura's voice wobbled. Immediately. What? Why would we? Because your client's company is about to be charged with supplying drug dealers. Bakugo cut in, leaning toward the phone. And if my girl's name isn't cleared by noon today, I'll personally make sure every hero agency in Japan knows TechNexus built gear for trigger distributors. A long pause. Then, who is this? Dynamite. Number 2 hero. The guy who's going to burn your client's reputation to the ground if you don't get those papers filed in the next 2 hours. Another pause. He could practically hear the lawyer's brain calculating the threat level. I'll have the withdrawals filed by 9, the lawyer finally said. And a statement prepared for Ms. Nakamura to sign, acknowledging the wrongful termination. Add theft of intellectual property, Bakugo demanded. Make it clear her designs were stolen. That's not. Nakamura started to protest. Bakugo silenced her with a look that had made villains piss themselves. Those were her circuits in those devices. Her layout. Her fucking signature. The lawyer sighed. I'll add it to the statement. Send it to my agency by 10. We'll be waiting. Bakugo nodded at Nakamura to end the call. As she set down the phone, he felt a rush of savage satisfaction. It wasn't enough. These people had stalked her, threatened her career, stolen her work for fucking drug dealers. Nothing would be enough for that. But it was a start. The police will be here soon, he said, moving toward the door. He paused at the threshold, looking back at the woman who'd tried to destroy everything his girl had worked for. Nobody messes with what's mine. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The apartment door swung open before Bakugo could use his key. She stood there in an oversized t-shirt, his t-shirt, hair mussed from sleep, eyes wide with worry. Katsuki? What happened? It's 5 in the... Her sleepy questions died as she took in his appearance. He must have looked like hell. Rain-soaked stealth gear, mud-spattered boots, a day's worth of stubble on his jaw. The left sleeve of his uniform was torn and crusted with dried blood. He hadn't even noticed the wound until he was halfway to her place. Adrenaline finally wearing off enough for the pain to register. Fine, he grunted, stepping inside. His body felt heavy, like he'd been fighting for days instead of hours. Just needed to see you. She closed the door behind him, flipping on lights as she followed him to the kitchen. Your arm is bleeding, you're soaking wet, and you look like you haven't slept in a week. That's not fine by any definition. The familiar exasperation in her voice loosened something in his chest. He'd missed this, her sass, her concern barely hidden behind annoyance. 3 weeks of chasing trigger dealers had left little time for anything else, including her. Got the bastards, he said, shrugging off his jacket with a wince. The ones distributing trigger. Her eyes lit up. Really? That's amazing. I knew you'd. She stopped, noticing how he was favoring his left arm. Sit down. Now. He sank into a kitchen chair, suddenly too tired to argue. She disappeared into the bathroom, returning with a first aid kit. Without a word, she pulled up a chair and began cutting away the torn fabric of his sleeve. This might need stitches, she murmured, examining the gash that ran from his elbow to halfway up his bicep. Had worse. That's not the comfort you think it is. She gently dabbed antiseptic on the wound. What happened? Bakugo hissed at the sting. Trigger-enhanced asshole with brass knuckles. She paused, looking up at him. You fought someone on trigger? Katsuki, that's not the important part. He cut her off. We found something else. Something you need to know. Her hands stilled, eyes meeting his. He could see the question there, the wariness. Whatever she was expecting, it wasn't what he was about to tell her. TechNexus was supplying trigger dealers with custom gear. He watched her face carefully. Using your designs. Her fingers tightened on the gauze she was holding. What? They stole your work. Built distribution devices disguised as everyday shit. Your circuits, your layouts. His jaw clenched. Your fucking signature was still on the boards. Color drained from her face, replaced by a flush of anger. Those lying, thieving. She stood abruptly, pacing the small kitchen. That's why they were so desperate to keep me quiet. Why they threatened legal action if I used my knowledge at your agency. Yeah, they had photos of you. Of us. He scrubbed a hand over his face. They were watching you, planning to blackmail you if you ever figured out what they'd done. She stopped pacing, her eyes blazing. I'll kill them. I'll march into Nakamura's office right now and... Already handled it. A grim satisfaction curved his lips. Paid Nakamura a visit. Made her call her lawyer, and withdraw everything. By noon today, there'll be a public statement clearing your name and admitting they stole your work. She blinked, some of the fury leaving her face. You what? When? About an hour ago. He shrugged his good shoulder. Police are probably arresting her right now. But, her gaze dropped to his injured arm, anger instantly replaced with concern. Your arm is still bleeding, you idiot. Why didn't you go to a hospital? The whiplash change in her focus caught him off guard. It's just a scratch. A scratch doesn't bleed through bandages. She was back at his side, pressing fresh gauze to the wound. You should be getting this looked at, not storming CEOs' houses at 4 a.m. They were going to destroy you, he said, voice low and fierce. Had to make it right. Her eyes softened as she began wrapping his arm. While I appreciate the knight in explosive armor routine, I'm more worried about you bleeding all over my kitchen right now. TCH, nothing. She secured the bandage with medical tape, her fingers lingering on his skin. It's not nothing to me. Her voice was quiet, almost vulnerable. You charging into danger, getting hurt. That matters more than some corporate assholes stealing my designs. Something warm bloomed in his chest, chasing away the cold rage that had fueled him since finding those documents. He reached up with his good hand, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. They can't touch you now, he murmured. Made sure of it. She leaned down, pressing her lips against his with a gentleness that made his chest ache. Not the hungry, desperate kisses they usually shared, but something softer. Something that spoke of relief and gratitude, and things neither of them were good at putting into words. When she pulled back, her eyes were bright with unshed tears. You went after them for me. It wasn't a question, but he nodded anyway, suddenly uncomfortable with the naked emotion on her face. Fuck, he wasn't good at this part, the soft looks, the tender moments. Give him a warehouse full of villains any day. What you did? She continued, her voice thick. Standing up to Tech Nexus like that. Taking on Nakamura. That's the most anyone's ever fought for me. His throat tightened. Wasn't gonna let them get away with it. My hero, she murmured, half teasing but with an undercurrent of sincerity that made heat crawl up his neck. Before she could say anything else embarrassing, he grabbed her waist and pulled her down onto his lap, ignoring the twinge of pain that shot through his injured arm. Katsuki, she protested, trying to squirm away. Your arm is fine, he growled, tightening his grip. Stop moving. You're hurt, she insisted, but stopped struggling. Don't care. He buried his face in the crook of her neck, breathing in the scent of her sleep-warm skin and that fancy shampoo she used. Missed you. 3 weeks without holding her like this. 3 weeks of quick texts and brief calls between missions. 3 weeks too fucking long. She relaxed against him, fingers threading through his damp hair. You need a shower. And sleep. Need you more. The words slipped out before he could stop them, raw and honest in a way he rarely allowed himself to be. But fuck it. He was too tired to maintain his usual walls, and she'd already seen him at his worst anyway. Her arms tightened around him, careful of his injured side. I'm right here. They sat like that for a long moment, just breathing together in the quiet kitchen. The adrenaline crash was hitting him hard now, making his limbs feel heavy and his thoughts fuzzy around the edges. You've been different, he murmured against her skin. In your texts. Short with me. She pulled back to look at him, eyebrows raised. What? No, I haven't. Have too. He frowned, trying to articulate what had been bothering him. Less you. That's your imagination, she scoffed, but there was a flicker of something in her eyes. Haven't called me an asshole in 2 weeks, he pointed out. Not once. The corner of her mouth twitched. You've been counting? TCH, no. He scowled, but they both knew it was a lie. Just noticed. Ah, does Katsuki miss being insulted? Her voice was teasing now, the familiar spark returning to her eyes. Poor baby needs his daily dose of being called a jerk. Shut up, he grumbled, but the knot in his chest loosened. This was better, this was them. The great Dynamite, number 2 hero, secretly pining for verbal abuse. She was laughing now, eyes crinkling at the corners in the way that always did something stupid to his heart. Should I start a schedule? Morning and evening insults, with a bonus round on weekends? He rolled his eyes, but couldn't stop the smile tugging at his lips. You're fucking impossible. And you're an idiot who picks fights with CEOs instead of going to the hospital. She cupped his face, suddenly serious again. But you're my idiot. Something warm unfurled in his chest at the possessive note in her voice. After fighting so hard to protect what was his, hearing her claim him in return felt right in a way he couldn't explain. She leaned in, kissing him again, still soft, but with a hint of the fire that always burned between them. His good hand slid up her back, pulling her closer, ignoring the ache in his arm and the bone-deep exhaustion weighing him down. Nothing else mattered but this, her weight in his lap, her lips on his, the knowledge that he'd torn down anyone who tried to hurt her and would do it again in a heartbeat. She broke the kiss, resting her forehead against his. You need a shower, she whispered, but made no move to get up from his lap. Later, Bakugo murmured, trailing kisses down her neck. Her skin was soft under his lips, warm with sleep and now flushing. His good hand found the hem of her shirt, his shirt, and slipped underneath, tracing the curve of her waist. Her breath hitched as his calloused fingers skimmed over her ribs. You're hurt, she protested weakly, even as she arched into his touch. Don't give a fuck, he growled against her collarbone. The pain in his arm was nothing compared to the need burning through him. The need to feel her, to claim her, to remind himself that she was safe and his. She pulled back slightly, eyes searching his face. Whatever she saw there must have satisfied her, because she leaned in again, capturing his mouth in a kiss that started gentle but quickly deepened. Her tongue slid against his, hands tenderly cradling his face. It was different from their usual desperate, frantic encounters. There was an undercurrent of something deeper in the way she touched him. And he lied it. His hand moved higher beneath the shirt, finding the soft weight of her breast. She wasn't wearing anything underneath, and he groaned into her mouth as he cupped her tit, thumb brushing over her nipple. The small, needy sound she made in response went straight to his cock. Missed this, he muttered against her lips. Missed you. I missed you too, she whispered, rolling her hips against Dick beneath his tactical pants. So much. She kissed him again, slower this time, then began trailing her lips along his jaw, down his neck. Her hands slid down his chest, careful to avoid his injured arm as she unbuckled his utility belt. Bakugo watched through half-lidded eyes as she slipped from his lap to kneel between his spread legs. His cock twitched in anticipation as her fingers worked at the fastenings of his pants, eyes locked with his. Let me take care of you, she said, voice husky. You've done enough tonight. He couldn't find it in himself to argue as she freed his dick from the confines of his pants, wrapping her fingers around the thick length. His breath hissed through his teeth at the contact, hips jerking involuntarily. Fuck, he breathed as she stroked him slowly, her thumb circling the sensitive head of his cock. 3 weeks without her touch had left him wound tighter than he realized. She held his gaze as she leaned forward, pressing a soft kiss to the tip before taking him into her mouth. Bakugo's uninjured hand immediately found its way into her hair, not pushing or guiding, just needing to touch her as she took him apart. God! The word escaped him as her tongue swirled around his cock. The wet heat of her mouth was almost too much after so long without her. His fingers tightened in her hair, careful not to hurt, but unable to control his reaction. She hummed around him, sending vibrations that made his thighs tense. One hand gripped the base of his shaft while the other caressed his thigh, occasionally dipping lower to cup his balls. Bakugo couldn't tear his eyes away from the sight of her lips stretched around his dick, the way her cheeks hollowed as she sucked, the flutter of her eyelashes as she looked up at him through her lashes. It was fucking perfect, she was perfect. That's it, he groaned, thumb brushing her cheek. Taking my cock so good, fuck. She moaned around him, the sound sending another jolt of pleasure up his spine. Her pace increased, taking him deeper with each bob of her head until he felt himself hitting the back of her throat. His control was fraying at the edges, but before he could warn her, she pulled back, giving the head one last lingering suck before releasing him with a wet pop. She rose to her feet, pulling his shirt over her head in one smooth motion. Bakugo's breath caught in his throat at the sight of her, naked except for a pair of simple cotton panties, hair tousled, lips swollen and eyes dark with want. You're so fucking beautiful, he said. Her cheeks flushed as she reached for the waistband of her panties, sliding them down her legs and kicking them aside. Completely naked to him now, she stepped between his spread thighs, hands resting on his shoulders. I need you, she whispered, leaning down to kiss him again. The taste of himself on her tongue made him groan, his hand sliding up her thigh to her slick pussy. So wet already, he murmured against her lips as his fingers found her pussy, slipping easily through her folds. This all for me? She nodded, gasping as he circled her clit with his thumb. Always for you, she breathed, her hips moving against his hand. Only you. Something primal and possessive surged through him at her words. He slipped a finger inside her, then another, feeling her clench around them. Need you, she repeated, more urgently this time. Need you inside me. Bakugo removed his fingers, bringing them to his mouth and sucking them clean, savoring her taste. She bit her lip, her breath coming in quick little pants. She straddled him again, positioning herself over his cock. Bakugo gripped her hip with his good hand, steadying her as she slowly sank down onto his dick. They both groaned as he filled her, inch by inch, until she was fully seated in his lap. She rested her forehead against his again, eyes closed, adjusting to the stretch of him inside her. "Fuck," he whispered, overwhelmed by the tight, wet heat of her cunt around his dick. "You feel so good, baby. So fucking good." She opened her eyes, looking at him like he hung the stars. Slowly, she began to move, rocking her hips in a gentle rhythm. Bakugo's hand moved from her hip to cup her ass, guiding her movements but letting her set the pace. His injured arm remained at his side, but didn't give a fuck about it. She braced herself with her hands on his shoulders, careful of his wound as she rode him with slow, deep rolls of her hips. Her tits bounced gently with each movement, and he couldn't resist leaning forward to capture a nipple between his lips. She gasped, her walls clenching around his cock as he sucked and licked. "Katsuki," she moaned, one hand moving to the back of his head, holding him against her breast. He switched to her other tit, giving it the same attention while his hand kneaded the firm flesh of her ass. The room filled with the sounds of her soft moans, his deeper groans, the wet sounds of his pussy taking him in. "You're mine," he growled against her skin, nipping at the swell of her breast. "Fucking mine." "Yours," she agreed breathlessly, picking up the pace slightly. "All yours." Her movements became more purposeful, grinding down on him with each downstroke, taking him as deep as she could. Bakugo could feel her getting wetter around him, her inner walls fluttering. "That's it," he encouraged, trailing kisses up her neck to her jaw. "Ride my cock, baby. Take what you need." She whimpered, her rhythm faltering slightly. Bakugo gripped her ass tighter, helping her maintain the pace. His own orgasm was building, but he held it back, determined to watch her fall apart first. "So beautiful," he murmured against her ear. "Love watching you like this. Love feeling you around my dick." Her movements grew more and more frantic, hips grinding against his with increasing desperation. Bakugo could feel the telltale quivering of her inner walls around his cock, the way her breath hitched with each downward stroke. "Come for me," he growled. His hand moved from her ass to her clit and rubbed tight circles against the swollen bud. "Need to feel you come on my dick," she gasped, her back arching as her rhythm faltered. "Katsuki, I." Her words dissolved into a moan as he increased the pressure on her clit, her pussy clamping around him in pulses. "Oh God, I'm. That's it," he urged, watching her face contort with pleasure. "Let go, baby. Fucking take it." Her eyes squeezed shut. "Katsuki," she cried out, walls spasming around his cock. "I love you, fuck, I love you so much." Her eyes snapped open like a deer caught in headlights. Bakugo froze, watching her face. Horror replaced the bliss in her eyes. I didn't," she scrambled backward, pulling off him with a wet sound that would have been obscene in any other context. "Shit, I didn't mean to." Bakugo couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Her words echoed in his head, drowning out everything else. "I love you. I love you." She was on her feet now, backing away, hands raised as if to ward off his reaction. "It was just, in the moment, can we just pretend I didn't?" His chest cracked open, raw and painful and real. No one had ever said those words to him before, not like that. He'd never expected to hear them, never thought he deserved to. But she'd said them. To him. She turned away, reaching for her discarded shirt. "I should just." Before she could finish, Bakugo was on his feet. His injured arm screamed in protest as he grabbed her wrist, but he didn't give a shit. There was a roaring in his ears, a certainty burning through him that he couldn't articulate. He loved her too. Fuck. He fucking loved her, and he'd probably loved her for months now. Maybe even from the first time she'd stood up to him, with her snarky-ass comments. She'd told him before that she was falling for him, but this was different. This wasn't tentative or cautious. This was certain, absolute. Without a word, he spun her around, catching her surprised gasp with his mouth. The kiss was bruising, desperate, his good hand fisting in her hair as he backed her toward the kitchen table. His cock, still wet from her pussy, throbbed painfully between them. Small explosions crackled from his palms, his quirk reacting to the storm of emotions he couldn't contain. She jerked in surprise at the sound, pulling back to look at his hands with wide eyes. Katsuki. He didn't let her finish. Couldn't let her talk her way out of what she'd said, couldn't risk letting her take it back. Using his body weight, he turned her around and bent her over the table in one fluid motion, pressing her down until her chest was flat against the wooden surface, tits squashed beneath her. The position forced her ass up, presenting her glistening cunt to him. She turned her head to look back at him, eyes wide, cheek pressed against the cool surface of the table. Bakugo's hand came up to the back of her neck, not squeezing but holding her firmly in place. His palm popped with tiny explosions, just enough to make her feel the heat against her skin without burning. "Say it again," he demanded, voice so rough he barely recognized it. His dick nudged against her entrance, sliding through her slickness but not pushing inside. Fucking say it again. She shivered beneath him, eyes locked with his. I. His hand tightened slightly on her neck. Don't lie to me. Don't you fucking dare take it back. I love you, she whispered, the words trembling on her lips. I love you, Katsuki. Something savage and tender ripped through his chest. He couldn't say it back. The words were locked behind years of walls he'd built, trapped in a throat that suddenly felt too tight. But he could show her. In one hard thrust, he buried himself to the hilt inside her, a guttural sound tearing from his throat at the feel of her wet heat engulfing him again. She cried out, back arching as she took all of him, walls stretching to accommodate his girth. Fuck, he hissed, watching his cock disappearing into her cunt. So fucking perfect. He withdrew almost completely before slamming back in, setting a punishing rhythm from the start. His good hand stayed at her neck, keeping her pinned to the table as he fucked her with everything he had, each thrust carrying all the words he couldn't say. Miniature explosions continued to spark to the battle of emotions raging inside him. Possessiveness, lust, and something deeper that he'd never allowed himself to feel before. She moaned beneath him, pushing back against each thrust, taking everything he gave her. Katsuki, she gasped, her fingers clawing at the table's edge. Oh God, yes. The sight of her spread out for him, taking his cock so perfectly, saying his name like a prayer, it was the most beautiful fucking thing he'd ever seen. And she loved him. She loved him. Mine, he growled, pace never faltering. His dick slid in and out of her with obscene, wet sounds that only made him harder. You're fucking mine. Yours, she agreed breathlessly, her pussy clenching around him with each thrust. Always yours. The pressure in his balls was building, his orgasm approaching fast and unstoppable. He reached around with his good hand, finding her clit again and rubbing harsh circles as he pounded into her. Come with me, he demanded, feeling her walls beginning to flutter. Wanna feel you come on my cock again. Her moans grew higher, more desperate as she neared the edge. Katsuki, I'm gonna. Do it, he growled, hips snapping against her ass. Come for me, baby. Fucking come now. She shattered with a scream, her cunt clamping down on his dick in rhythmic pulses. Bakugo groaned, his own orgasm crashing through him like a tidal wave. With one final thrust, he buried himself as deep as he could and came, pumping his load into her willing body. Fuck, he groaned, muscles tensing as he emptied himself inside her. Fuck. They stayed frozen, both panting, his good hand now braced on the table beside her as aftershocks rippled through them. When he finally pulled out, a trickle of his cum followed, running down the inside of her thigh. The sight of his cum marking her made him savagely happy. He helped her stand on shaky legs, turning her to face him. Her face was flushed, hair a mess, lips swollen from his kisses. She looked thoroughly fucked and utterly perfect. She also looked uncertain, vulnerable. He fucking hated it. I meant it, she whispered, eyes searching his. What I said. Bakugo swallowed hard, throat working. The words were right fucking there, burning in his chest, but he couldn't force them past his lips. Not yet. Instead, he leaned down, pressing his forehead against hers. I know, he said roughly. It wasn't enough, wasn't what she deserved, but it was all he could manage right now. He felt like a fucking coward. She still looked at him like he was about to walk away. Like her words had been a mistake he wouldn't forgive. He hated it. Hated that he was the reason for that look, that his inability to say 3 simple words was causing her pain. He swept her up into his arms, ignoring the sharp protest from his injured bicep. She yelped, wrapping her legs around his waist instinctively. Katsuki, your arm, she scolded, her voice wobbly. Put me down, you're going to make it worse. Shut up, he grunted, already carrying her toward the bathroom. Shower. Now. She didn't argue further, just rested her head against his good shoulder, her body limp against his. He set her down gently on the bath mat, the small space suddenly feeling claustrophobic, all because he couldn't say 3 fucking words. He reached in and turned on the water, adjusting the temperature until steam started to fill the room. You need to be careful with that, she murmured, her gaze fixed on the bloody bandage. Let me help. He stood still as she carefully peeled away the soaked dressing, her touch maddeningly gentle. The wound looked angry and raw in the humid air, sluggishly weeping blood again. It needs cleaning, she said, her voice all business now. He nodded, stripping off his ruined uniform pants and kicking them aside. When he turned back, she was already in the shower, her back to him as she rinsed her face under the spray. The water streamed down her back, over the curve of her ass, and down her long legs. His cock stirred again, the possessive need to claim her once more almost overwhelming. He stepped into the shower behind her, hissing as the hot water hit his injured arm. She turned at the sound, her eyes full of concern. Here, she said, her voice soft. She took his injured arm, her hand cool against his feverish skin. The temperature of her palm began to drop, an icy cold spreading from her touch that soothed the angry, throbbing ache in his bicep. Her quirk. He'd nearly forgotten about it. Better? She asked, her gaze focused on his arm. Yeah, he managed, the relief so intense it made him dizzy. The pain receded, leaving behind a dull throb. Thanks. She let go, and the soothing cold vanished, the sting of the hot water returning, though less severe than before. You still need to get it checked out by a real doctor. She took the soap, lathering her hands before gently, methodically, cleaning the gash. He stood there like a statue, letting her tend to him, his eyes tracing the slick lines of her body. He watched the way the water beaded on her shoulders, the way her nipples hardened under the spray, the way her hair clung to her neck. She was so beautiful it hurt, and she loved him. The thought was still a shock to his system, a grenade that had gone off in the middle of his carefully constructed world. When she finished with his arm, she started washing his hair, her fingers working shampoo into his scalp with a tenderness he didn't deserve. He closed his eyes, leaning into her touch, letting the steam and the scent of her and the simple act of being cared for wash over him. It was too much. It was everything. He opened his eyes when she rinsed the last of the suds from his hair. She was looking at him again, that same vulnerable, uncertain expression back on her face. Listen, she started, her voice barely audible over the sound of the water. About before, what I said. He tensed, his entire body going rigid. Here it came. She was going to take it back. You should just forget it. She wouldn't meet his eyes, focusing instead on a tile on the shower wall. It was the heat of the moment. We were, things get said. It didn't mean anything. Rage, cold and sharp, cut through the haze of exhaustion and arousal. It didn't mean anything. The words were a slap in the face. He just spent the last couple of minutes that left like hours, consumed by the raw, terrifying power of her confession, and she was trying to brush it off like it was nothing. The fuck it didn't, he rasped, his voice a low growl. He grabbed her by the shoulders, his good hand gripping her tightly. He backed her against the cold tile wall, trapping her with his body. The water sluiced over them, but he barely felt it. Don't lie to me, he snarled, invading her space, forcing her to look at him. You don't get to drop a bomb like that, and then try to pretend it didn't happen. Her eyes widened, a flicker of fear in them that he instantly hated. I don't want to make things weird, she whispered. We have a good thing. Fuck buddies. No strings. I don't want to ruin it. Fuck buddies. He spat the words like they were poison. Is that what you think this is? You think I went to war with your old company for a fuck buddy? Tears welled in her eyes, threatening to spill. I don't know what to think. You're you. And I'm me. This whole thing is crazy, and I said something I shouldn't have, and I don't want you to feel obligated. The fight went out of him as quickly as it had come, replaced by a hollow ache in his chest. Obligated. She thought he felt obligated. He was such a fucking idiot. He'd let his pride and his fear keep him silent, and now she thought his feelings were a chore. You think I'd do any of this out of obligation? His voice was quieter now, laced with a pain he couldn't hide. You think I'd let you into my life, my agency, my head, if I didn't want you there? He let go of her shoulders, his hands falling to his sides. The space between them suddenly felt like a chasm. He felt stripped bare, his own carefully guarded heart exposed and bleeding on the shower floor. You're the first thing I think about when I wake up, he admitted, the words tasting foreign on his tongue. And the last thing I think about before I pass out. When I'm on patrol, I'm thinking about getting back to you. When some villain gets a lucky shot, all I can think is that I can't die because I haven't seen you yet. Her breath hitched, tears finally spilling over and mixing with the water on her cheeks. When you said those words, he continued, forcing himself to go on, to tear down the last of his walls. It wasn't a bomb. It was like the key. The one that finally unlocked the last fucking door I'd been keeping shut. He took a step closer, cupping her face with his good hand, his thumb stroking her wet cheek. I was just too much of a goddamn coward to say it first. Her eyes searched his, wide and full of disbelief and dawning hope. He took a deep breath, the steam filling his lungs. It was now or never. I love you, he said, the words finally breaking free, raw and absolute. Fuck, I'm so in love with you it makes me stupid. A sob escaped her lips, a sound of pure, unadulterated relief. She threw her arms around his neck, burying her face in his shoulder, and he held her tight, his injured arm be damned. He held her like she was the only anchor in his storm-tossed life. You love me, she whispered into his skin, her voice thick with tears. More than anything, he confirmed, his voice cracking on the last word. He pressed his lips to her temple, her hair, her cheek, tasting her salt and the clean scent of the soap. I love you, nerd. So don't you ever fucking try to take it back again. You're mine. And I'm yours. Understood? She pulled back just enough to look at him, her face a mess of tears and joy, the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. Understood, she choked out, a watery smile breaking through. Then she kissed him, and it wasn't a kiss of desperation or hunger or even gratitude. It was a kiss of homecoming. A promise. It was everything he'd never known he needed, and now couldn't imagine living without. And for the first time in a long time, Katsuki Bakugo felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be.